Welcome back to Hardball. Former Vice President Dick Cheney cooked up an all-you-can-eat buffet of quotes with CNN's John King on Sunday. Here to graze with us is MSNBC's Pat Buchanan and Democratic strategist Joe Trippi. Let's start with Vice President Cheney's assessment of the old, well, I was going to say his boss, but that's a tricky assessment, his assessment of George W. Bush.
Do you believe the President of the United States has made Americans less safe?
I do. I think those programs were absolutely essential to the success we enjoyed of being able to collect the intelligence that led us to defeat all further attempts to launch attacks against the United States since 9/11. I think that's a great success story. It was done legally. It was done in accordance with our constitutional practices and principles. President Obama campaigned against it all across the country, and now he's making some choices that, in my mind, will in fact raise the risk to the American people of another attack.
Of course, that was about the 44th president, not the 43rd. Patrick Buchanan, your thoughts about his defense of torture and his attack on Barack for not using it?
Well, I think when Vice President Cheney said that the President of the United States, George Bush, made us safer after 9/11, there were no attacks after 9/11. Has the closing of Guantanamo, the changing of the definition of these folks as enemy combatants, has the ending of waterboarder, will that make us safer? Chris, we can't say right now, but we're certainly going to find out.
Well, certainly Abu Ghraib made us enough enemies out there, Joe Trippi. The world hated us for that one. The way we humiliated Islamic prisoners, men especially.
I think that's right. I think that what Obama's done is open up the door so we have a different kind of face, a different kind of policy now to the rest of the world, which what we needed to do to try to shut down what the Bush administration had done to make us less safe, to make more enemies out there. So I don't think this worked. And I think Obama, what Cheney said was true. Obama campaigned on this. He made the case. He won. The American people want these changes.
And he won the election. Here's the very buttoned-down Robert Gibbs speaking for the president. Here he is, Pat, then you.
Sure.
I guess Rush Limbaugh was busy. So they trotted out the next most popular member of the Republican cabal. The president has made quite clear that keeping the American people safe and secure is the job, is the most serious job that he has each and every day.
Well, Pat, there he is sticking back, and I'm calling him a part of the Republican cabal, which seems to be the way the White House describes the opposition now. Not as an alternative governing party, but as a bunch of crazies.
I think Gibbs is a good fellow, but I think that was very demeaning. I think it was disgraceful from the podium of the White House to be speaking about a former vice president in that kind of cheap manner. But Chris, look, a lot of that alumni association from Guantanamo has been showing up in Yemen, blowing up people in Iraq, showing up in Afghanistan. They're very horrible people down there, and we all agree torture's outlawed. We may not agree on waterboarding, but I'll tell you, the vice president has a point. They kept us safe, and people do wonder whether what Obama's going to do is going to keep us safe, but the jury is out.
Okay, let's take a look at Dick Cheney here, the former vice president, on Iraq, in the war we're still fighting.
I guess my general sense of where we are with respect to Iraq, and at the end of now, what, nearly 6 years, is that we've accomplished nearly everything we set out to do. Now, I don't hear much talk about that, but the fact is the violence level's down 90%. The number of casualties and Iraqis and Americans is significantly diminished. There's been elections, a constitution. They're about to have another presidential election here in the near future. We have succeeded in creating in the heart of the Middle East a democratically governed Iraq, and that's a big deal.
It's always interesting to watch the former Vice President, Dick Cheney, as he runs out onto the field pretending he's wearing a referee's costume and acts like he's passing judgment on his own success. But he does it with that sort of avuncular manner, and it sounds like he's so dispassionate when, in fact, he's defending his own behavior.
That's right, and we'll see, you know, it's the same thing. We'll see here whether what he just said was true or not. I mean, we've got the Obama campaign, Obama presidency taking the troops out now, and we'll see whether it's a sustained democracy. I hope so.
Chris, let me agree.
They're offering up a new. Go ahead. Because they're offering up a whole new definition of why we went in. They can't defend DMZ, or what do you call them?
WMD.
Weapons of WMD anymore. They can't defend a connection to Iraq. They're not. The arguments used to get us in the war have been forgotten and displaced. Now they have a new argument, which we fought for democracy over there. If they had tried to put that flag up back in 2001. 2001, 2002, the American people would have moved on and said, no, we don't fight wars like we're little Napoleons running around the world. Well, you call it democratizing. You're the guy that created that term, democratists.
Well, exactly. And I agree with you basically on this, Chris. We would never have gone to war, and we should never go to war to really, go to launch an invasion of Zimbabwe to get rid of Mugabe. But let me tell you, the Vice President, what he overlooked is the price of this war. It's not only 4,000 dead Americans, 30,000 wounded, more than 100,000 dead Iraqis, hundreds of thousands of widows and kids without fathers, 4 million refugees, the Christian community cut to pieces over there, half of them driven into Syria. It's been a horribly costly thing. I think they would have been better off, those people, if we had left them alone. And B, I do not believe we have a right to attack a country that doesn't threaten us, want war with us, or attack us in order to deprive it of weapons it does not have.
I agree with him. I mean, we're just in rapid agreement here. I mean, the whole thing was the war never should have been fought. Obama opposed.
Well, here he is. You pick up on this, Joe. Here he is, the former vice president, still fighting the war. He's got his tail gunner uniform on. Here he is now.
If you hark back and look at the biggest threat we faced after 9/11, it was the idea of a rogue state or a terror-sponsoring state with weapons of mass destruction, say nukes, for example, and providing those to a terrorist organization. What happened in Iraq is we've eliminated that possibility. We got rid of one of the worst dictators in the 20th century. We got rid of his government. There's no prospect that Iraq is going to become a place where once again they produce weapons of mass destruction or support terrorists.
And we removed the only buffer against Iran.
They never had weapons of mass destruction. Okay. I mean, somewhere in this interview, he says that the Obama administration is playing fast and loose with the facts on the economic crisis to get their way on all their policies. This was who is he kidding? This is a guy who played
fast and loose. Sometimes, as you know, sitting in this desk, this side of the desk, Joe and Pat, you've tried to do this. We've all tried to do this. We try to catch everything that goes past us so we can act in real time. Sometimes people say things on this show so fast that they come out of left field or right field, and I don't even hear them. But a friend of mine called me up and said, pay attention to what Frank Gaffney said on your show on Thursday, and we went back and looked at the tape. Here's a charge, a claim for going to war with Iraq, another reason to go to war with Iraq from the neo